June looks to be a key month for the market. Today, it became even more important after the Federal Reserve gave the clearest indication yet at its meeting next month, the central bank could potentially raise interest rates again. In its just released minutes, most of its members say that they are ready. They just need the economy to cooperate, and that sent stocks on a pretty wild ride, with the Dow moving 200 points in just 45 minutes. By the close, the blue chip Dow index was off just 3 points, the Nasdaq rose 23, and the S&P 500 was up fractionally. We have two reports tonight. Mary Thompson is covering today's market reaction, but first, Steve Liesman reports from the Federal Reserve on the minutes of the central bank's last meeting.
The U.S. Federal Reserve strongly suggested the possibility of a June interest rate hike if the economic data improved as expected. In fact, in the minutes to its April meeting released today, the Fed said some of those conditions had already been met, including a stabilized dollar, rising equity prices, and diminished global risks. Many members of the Fed expected other conditions to be in place for a June hike by the time the Fed meets. Mostly that meant further evidence the economy would rebound in the second quarter from the weak GDP numbers we got in the first. Now, if those conditions were met, the minute said, quote, it likely would be appropriate for the committee to increase the target range for the federal funds rate in June. Now, not all were convinced. Federal Market Committee members were concerned about risks for a more persistent slowdown, about weak inflation, and continued risks from overseas growth, including the June vote on Brexit, or the exit of Britain from the European Union. But the minutes also indicated the Fed even discussed an April rate hike, and there were some who supported the idea. As it was, the Fed had decided to keep its options open for a June hike. Some worried the market wasn't paying enough attention and wasn't sufficiently prepared for a June rate rise. Now, there's going to be a lot of attention paid to speeches by Fed Chair, Vice Chair Stan Fischer and New York Fed President Bill Dudley. They're seen as leaders of the FOMC, and their commentary would go a long way to convincing markets the Fed could move as soon as next month. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Steve Liesman in Washington, D.C.